One of the finest Second Amendment advocates in America today, Colion Noir, just did a fantastic video on the importance of AR-style firearms and protecting people against animal attacks. I'll put a link to that video down below. But I want to fill in a little bit of the background, historical and constitutional, about why, yes, it's true, the Second Amendment is indeed applicable to protecting our lives using firearms against animal attacks. Stay tuned. We'll talk. Hey folks, I'm Mark Smith, host of the Four Boxes Diner, constitutional attorney, best-selling author, member of the United States Supreme Court Bar, and proud American gun owner. If you haven't subscribed to the Four Boxes Diner Second Amendment channel, please do so and show your love for our right to keep and bear arms. And please feel free to share this video widely to all your friends and colleagues in the Second Amendment community. Okay. Colion Noir, great Second Amendment advocate. I'm sure many of you people subscribe to his channel. Great guy, great channel. He did a fantastic video where he showed the importance of AR-15 style firearms in protecting lives against feral pig attacks. And he did some other great, stories in the context of that video involving firearms and animal attacks. Now, I really was excited to see this video of his because I am coming out imminently with, I would argue, perhaps the most definitive scholarly piece on the importance of the Second Amendment in protecting Americans against animal attacks, one of the reasons why it existed. And I just want to talk a little bit about the basis for that article. And of course, when that article is fully published, I will distribute it to all you guys so you can check it out as well. But I'll just hit some of the highlights. To begin with, we know that the Second Amendment protects the right to keep and bear arms. It confers a pre-existing right. We know this. And we know that the primary purpose of the Second Amendment is to protect us against various forms of tyranny, including domestic insurrections, foreign invasions, tyrannical governments, and self-defense, private self-defense against criminals and the like. But of course, it also includes protecting Americans against animal attacks and also allows them, of course, to hunt. So these are all intertwined within the Second Amendment. Now, to cut right to the chase, I just want to read something from former Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. This was what he asked in the context of the oral argument in the Heller versus the District of Columbia case in 2008. This just goes to show you the importance of the Second Amendment's right to keep and bear arms and protecting against animal attacks. It literally is so important to the Second Amendment, in addition to the other reasons we know all about, is that it actually came up. It actually came up in the Heller oral argument. Here's what happened. The District of Columbia's attorney, who was arguing for gun control, he was arguing against the Second Amendment's right to keep and bear arms, was making his case, and then Justice Kennedy, who of course was a pro-Second Amendment justice, he came out and asked the following question. He said essentially, counselor, okay? Are you saying, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, then I'll give you the quote. Are you saying that the Second Amendment had, quote, nothing to do with the concern of the remote settler to defend himself and his family against hostile Indian tribes and outlaws, wolves and bears and grizzlies and things like that? That's right. Justice Kennedy literally was discussing the importance of the Second Amendment's right to keep and bear arms in helping protect our early American forebears against animal attacks, specifically in the forms of grizzly bears, bears, and wolves. Came right up in the Heller case. Now, this is no shock at all because, of course, we know this was a big concern at the time of our founding. In addition to the importance of hunting, which also came up in the context of the Heller decision, where Justice Scalia talks about all the other reasons why we have a Second Amendment, but does make reference to the fact that founding fathers used firearms for hunting as well. Yet another reason why we have the right to keep and bear arms, although I know a lot of us don't use firearms for hunting, we use it for self-defense against all forms of tyranny. So let's go beyond the Heller oral argument and the opinion in Heller, and let's talk about what one of our greatest founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson, who wrote the Declaration of Independence, said about using firearms when it comes to animal attacks. This is what Thomas Jefferson said. Thomas Jefferson said that every American, I repeat, every American, that's his language, not mine, not yours, Thomas Jefferson's. Every American ought to be a gunman. Gunman was, again, Thomas Jefferson's language. And why did Thomas Jefferson said that every American ought to be a gunman? Well, here's what he said. He said you need to be a gunman as an American in order to, quote, protect his farm from the ravages of quadrupeds and his country from those of biped invaders. That's Thomas Jefferson's language. He wanted all of us to have firearms, not just to protect ourselves against biped invaders, foreign invaders, but also to protect our farms and our communities and ourselves against quadrupeds. Obviously, animals is the reference to quadrupeds. We know that one of the biggest quadruped predators that Thomas Jefferson was referring to, almost certainly, was the wolf. Because wolf attacks were known from everywhere from Massachusetts to South Carolina. In fact, I believe that bounties were placed on the heads of wolves in those colonies, in those states. Let me just give you two historical examples. One Vermont historian talked about how a wolf killed a young boy, tore him to bits, terrible story, but it was the realities of the frontier at the time of our founding. Beyond that, John Audubon, now this is very interesting. Have you ever heard of the word Audubon before? You should have heard that name because it's the Audubon Society, right? Well, John Audubon actually talked about describing wolves. He actually described wolves in his writings attacking two young men in Kentucky. One survived, one did not. In fact, in graphic detail, this is what John Audubon wrote. He says that the pack of wolves left, quote, the bones scattered around the snow, which was stained with his blood. Gruesome description, but it really shows what it was like on the frontier when it came to animal attacks against the colonists. And one additional historical point to sort of further support the great point that Colion Noir was making about the importance of firearms in protecting Americans against animal attacks, none other than Lewis and Clark. Now, you know from this channel the importance of the Lewis and Clark expedition in early 19th century to American gun law and to the Second Amendment. Just to remind you, Thomas Jefferson acquired the Louisiana territories through the Louisiana Purchase and basically acquired a massive amount of land from the French, from Napoleon Bonaparte. And he needed a group of people to go out and explore it. And Thomas Jefferson sent out Lewis and Clark, a whole expedition with a bunch of other men to explore this Louisiana Purchase territory. Now, this is very important because of some of the guns they brought, but we're not going to talk about that here. What we are going to talk about is there's a famous story where a grizzly bear attacked one member of the Lewis and Clark expedition, and it required like 6 or 7 of the expedition to kill this bear. I want to give one last historical example to corroborate and show the historical support for what Colion Noir is talking about, meaning the importance of firearms and defending against animal attacks, not just in modern America with AR-15s, but going back to the time of our founding and the start of this, the Second Amendment. And that is in the year 1780, which is 11 years before the ratification of the Second Amendment in 1791. In 1780, Daniel Boone and his brother Nellie were out hunting. I believe they were in the Kentucky territory. And what happened there was they stumbled across a bear and they shot the bear, but the bear was just wounded and ran off. So they try to track the bear. And as Daniel Boone is trying to track down the bear, he hears this commotion from another part of the woods. He goes running over there, and lo and behold, he finds a group of Shawnee Indians had beheaded his brother Nellie, and were dancing all around the corpse. Well, Daniel Boone was a tough guy, and he wound up driving off the Indians and ran them down, and the Indians ran off. But then Daniel Boone goes back to pick up his brother's body, Nellie, and guess what's going on there? A panther, believe it or not, is eating Nellie's deceased corpse. So in that story right there, you literally have Daniel Boone shooting a bear, then using his firearm to drive off Indians, and then finally stumbling across his brother's body being eaten by a panther. A panther, Indians, and a bear, all in one single firearm story from America's frontier in 1780. So to close, Colion Noir is absolutely right. It's very important to have firearms to protect American lives. And yes, I would agree that AR-15 style firearms in the modern America are the weapon of choice to protect against animal attacks in all respect. That's certainly what I would like to have. Okay. All right. Well, I hope you learned something here at the Four Boxes Diner. If you haven't subscribed, please do so, and we'll see you again here soon at the Four Boxes Diner.
Orders up. Table 2A.